In this lesson, I want to show you some ways that Eclipse will help you enter programs. One of the nice things about an IDE is that it provides lots of support for a programmer when they're entering a program. So let's look at some examples of that. One of the great examples is what I call code completion. So for example, if I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with the system object, once I hit the period, then Eclipse brings up a list of possible objects or methods or properties that I can use next. So for example, I can use out, and if I double click it, out then comes right onto my screen. If I hit dot again, now it tells me what methods are associated with system.out. If I type fast through it, you won't really even see it. Now let's stop right there. Notice when I type systemout.println, it automatically brought the parentheses up. Let's do that again so you can see it better. I'll go a little bit slower. I type in the first open parenthesis, and then Eclipse automatically added the closing parenthesis for me, saving me some time. I typed an open quote, and Eclipse automatically added the closing quote for me. Here I can just type hello world \n if I want to. Now, notice that at this point, there's a red squiggly line under the closing parenthesis. That's because I haven't included my semicolon yet. So once I do that and hit enter, the red squiggly line indicating a syntax error is cleared. Let's look at another example. Let's do just a simple for loop. Notice that I open the parenthesis and it gives the closing parenthesis for me. Now, if I want to put this in a code block, I type the open curly brace. Eclipse automatically adds the closing curly brace. So notice how Eclipse is following along as I type, trying to anticipate both what I'm going to type next and the errors that are already occurring. It's not anticipating the errors. It's actually seeing the errors as I type. Once I finish out the statement by, for example, adding a semicolon to this line, then it clears the syntax error at that point. So Eclipse can help you complete programming statements, and it also helps you find almost all syntax errors. In fact, I would say that all syntax errors are found by Eclipse, literally as you're making them. Now let's look at one more example. I'm going to create a class outside of our main class. Notice I started the class with an opening curly brace and it automatically closed it for me. So we're going to create a very simple name class. We're going to use this again in our code generation lesson next. Mostly just watch as I type as it finds the errors that I'm making. Notice right now I have an error over the closing parenthesis of my argument list because I haven't opened the block yet. Now once I open the block, then it goes away. Create a default constructor. So now this is a class that I've added into my code. If I come down into my main program and create an object, I'll just go ahead and do it. Code completion now recognizes my object, my name, as being an instance of the name class, which it finds up in the code above public class code sample. And notice that not only does it provide me with a list of the built-in methods that are inherited from object, but it also gives me a listing of my setFirst method that I've created. So code completion is a very nice tool, especially for the busy programmer who's trying to get a lot of code written quickly. Once you get used to using code completion, then it can really save you a lot of time. Now, as an instructor, I find code completion to be somewhat of a cheat for my students because the IDE tells them what they're supposed to be typing instead of having them type it themselves. So I see the pros and cons to code completion. I've pointed out how errors are shown, especially syntax errors. You can also use Eclipse to give you suggestions. So for example, let's say I type this in for the set first method. Well, that's clearly wrong because it only takes one argument. If I put my cursor on the error and type Control 1, it will give me a list of suggestions to fix the problem. So for example, the most obvious one is remove argument to match set first string. So here I can see that, I have two arguments when the prototype or the definition of set first only takes one string argument. So it also tells me some other things I can do is change the method to have another parameter or create another method that has two parameters. And so I can pick one of these methods to fix my problem. Well, the way to fix the problem is to change it back to one parameter. Now I've already got John, so we'll change that to Mike. No mistake there. Fix that. Clear that out. There we go. So by pressing Control 1 on an error, I can get a list of possible solutions to the error. So that's an overview of entering code and error correction in Eclipse. Now I want to move to the next lesson where we're going to talk about code generation, where I can use Eclipse to actually generate code for me.